With the discounted dividend model, what we're doing is we're essentially looking to discount all dividends to a present value to place a price on the stock, because the idea is essentially what investors want is cash back in their pockets, and firms that don't pay dividends now will eventually at some point in the future pay dividends. And so what we want to do is use the present value of any future dividend payments to figure out what today's stock price is. Um, in 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 reality, when you hold a stock, there are two ways to get returns. The first way to get a return is by receiving dividends, and so that's kind of the basis of the model. There's also the price that you receive when the stock is sold, and um, so coming back, so when you sell the stock, the idea is you would hopefully have seen an increase in the stock price. If the stock price goes up, you earn a positive return. If the stock price has gone down, you would earn a negative return from that price change. So what that means is essentially we're going to use this equation to represent the total return that you can expect from a share of stock. And the idea here is this here represents what's referred to as the dividend yield. This here is what's referred to as the capital gains yield. And so essentially what this model does is it says your expected return is composed of whatever your expected dividend yield is, plus whatever your expected capital gains yield is. If you were to do this on a 1-year return, let's say you buy the stock on the last day of 2020. So the return that you would receive on the stock would be whatever dividends you would receive over the course of 2021 divided by the price that you paid for the stock in 2020. If you sell the stock, you would get what's referred to as the capital gains yield. And so the return that you earn, we're going to use R bar for a realized return. The return that you would earn when you sell the stock in 2021, let's say you sell it on the last day of 2021 as well, the return that you earn is also the percent change in the price of the stock from the time that you held it. So all these terms here, the dividend yield and the capital gains yield, if you held the stock for all of 2021, this would be your annual dividend yield, which is the percent return that you earn from the dividend alone. This here would be the capital gains yield that you earned, which is the percent change in the stock price over the time that you held it. So that capital gains yield, percent change in the stock price, this is just the percent change in wealth that you would earn if there's no price change in the stock at all. So that's basically the two ways that you earn return on stock, is either through receiving dividends or through the company's price changing, or both. So we're going to discuss a little bit how we can why we can use dividends or expected dividends as the basis for stock values. And so the idea here is, suppose you purchase a stock and intend to hold the stock in your family forever. So you buy the stock, you pass it down to your children pass it down to their children, and so on. And so basically, this stock is in your family from now until the end of time. What that means is you would never be selling the stock. All that you receive is the cash, the cash from dividends from now until the end of time. So what this model assumes, there is no D0 here. So what we're going to do is we're going to assume that the company pays annual dividends and that the dividend was just paid. So the next dividend that's going to be paid is 1 year from today. And what we want to do is discount that dividend to a present value. So this just says with 1 plus RS in the denominator, we'll actually, let's put a little bit of terminology here first. The P0 hat is the intrinsic value. D sub T is the dividend in year T. And R sub S is the required return on stock S. So all this, this first part of this equation does is it says, what's the present value of dividend 1, of the dividend that's paid in year 1? What this is the present value of the dividend that's paid in year 2. And you do that on and on from now until the end of time. You forecast what dividends are going to be over the entire course of time, and you take all of their present values. So this would be the present value of the dividend paid in year infinity. So essentially the end of time. You add all those present values together, and in theory, since these are dividends per share, you're getting an estimate for what the intrinsic value is for the share of stock, because ultimately it's those cash flows that are coming back into your family's pockets, and we use time value of money, get the present value of all of those dividends, and that's what that stock price, what that stock should be worth today. It's worth noting that this model applies, this model still applies if you plan to sell the stock. It doesn't rely solely on the assumption that you hold the stock in your family from now until the end of time. That's just something that makes it easier to think about for why we can value the stock based on dividends. It still applies if you plan to sell the stock, because when you sell it, whoever receives the stock is going to look at future dividend payments. And if that person plans to sell the stock to someone else, that person is also going to look at future dividend payments. So in the end, the fact that people buy stock, even sometimes with the intention to sell it later on, does not invalidate the model, because the dividends that a stock pays are still the ultimate determination in this model. It's the dividends that are paid that are going to place a value on the firm. It doesn't matter on how long, it doesn't matter about how long you plan to hold the stock.